Alright, looks like we're live. Alright, what's happening? Just want to say welcome to everybody that's watching. And I wanted to talk about something that I feel like no matter how many times I say it to people, it either goes over their head or they act like they don't understand. So I wanted to make it clear in video form. And that is that there is no such thing as a black racist. You cannot be racist and be black. It's impossible. These are things that you hear mostly from white folks. Like you might get white folks that'll say, "Oh, that's a black racist," or "That's reverse racism, black racism, whatever." Right? And what makes it even worse and even more sad is that you'll even have black people that will say the same thing and have the same rhetoric. That whenever someone criticizes white people or what white people have done in the past, specifically talking about the plight of black people or situation black people are in as a whole, they may bring that up. Well, you're a black racist. Even black folks talk like that now. I see it getting worse too, as far as blacks criticizing blacks but saying nothing about whites, but I'll get into that in another video. Because it's something that has to be dealt with, I feel like, at this point, particularly with black men. I think we're at a point where I think black men need to stand up and really take hold and control as far as the direction that the people call the black community is going, and have a more of a stronger voice to say, this is acceptable, this is not, instead of just following the course of what everybody else is doing. Just tagging along and riding the wave, which is kind of what I feel like we've been doing as brothers for a while now. We've been asleep. But what racism is, when you talk about being racist, when you're racist, that means you have a problem with somebody based on their race. That means you don't like somebody because they're white or whatever, or because of how they look. You got a problem with them because of how they look. When I say have a problem, you might look down on them, or you might feel that they're inferior to you, or you're better in some way or superior in some way because of their race. That's racism. You know, you're making a judgment call based on how somebody looks compared to how you look, right? And the only way that you can have that type of a accusation against a black man is to completely ignore, completely circumvent or get around why a black person would have a problem with a white person and what they're really talking about. Okay? In other words, when you look at a black person and you see they avoid, or they're cautious, standoffish, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to whites, you got to look at the reason why they're doing that. Is the reason why blacks who have a problem with whites how they look? You will never find, I don't care what anybody says, you don't find black people saying I have a problem with a white person because they're white. Okay? When you find blacks that seem that they have an issue with whites, the issue is not how they look. You understand? Whenever someone like me, for example, whenever someone gets an accusation of being a black racist, it's because they're talking about things white people have done in the past and now, really. Okay? That's not the same as being a racist. Okay? When black people talk about, I'm going to deal with my own people, it's important to support, cherish, value my own people because of what has happened by the hand of white people in general, history or whatever, that's not having a problem with white people based on how they look. All right? The real reason why people keep bringing up these terms, and it's time for us to stop falling for these games, the real reason people like to do that and flip it back onto you is because they don't want to deal with those things that black people have an issue with concerning whites. What are those issues? Well, we already know the history. We already know the state that black people are in right now, that, black people are on the bottom as a whole. Wherever you go in society, the high society, well-to-do, well-off, you know, tend to be white. The rich communities tend to be controlled and overpopulated by whites, and when you go to the poor areas, they're overpopulated by blacks. Wherever you go on the planet, you know, there's some people that have no problem with that, and that's fine with me if you don't have a problem with that. Okay, if you think that's okay, and that doesn't bug you, that's fine. But to people like me that is not does not accept that, and knows that there's supposed to be a better solution, or that something should be done to fix that, and that we should be working to fix that, you know, there's certain ways you have to go about doing that, and a lot of those ways have to do with how we associate with ourselves, aside from white acceptance and aside from trying to assimilate into what the white ways of life are, and trying to be like them or be accepted by them or being picked by them. You know, a lot of things we need to do have to be from our own. And so when people talk about black this, doing things black only, black first, pro-black, people call that racism because they don't want to deal with those issues. They would rather pretend like they don't exist, you know. And I'd rather people be honest, like I've said in my other videos. I'd rather people just be honest and say how they actually feel, that they don't care. And a lot of black people don't care about the state that the black man is in, you know. They would rather believe that everything is the same. But like some of the things I just mentioned, those aren't the same, okay? But when you bring up those type of things, you know. Anyway, I think people just want to throw those terms out because they want to, just have something to kind of shirk the responsibility of dealing with your own people, so that they can close their eyes, stay asleep, and not have to get into a discussion. Because if you really get into a discussion and you're on the opposing view of that, you're going to side with whites. That's what this is really about. Which side are you on? Because a lot of blacks now, especially this year, I see that they're, like I said earlier, they will criticize blacks up and down, especially the so-called pro-blacks. They will criticize, have all these things to say, but they will never say anything about what whites are doing. They'll pretend like they're doing nothing, and they won't dare talk about what they've done in the past, even though everything that's going on is directly related to what happened in the past. It's a direct cause of it. They need to those type of people need to just come out and say, I don't care. I like white society better. It's more important to be accepted and do what I need to do to be accepted by them than to help my own or to care about my own. You know, I don't like them, and I don't want to care. Just be real about it. That way, at least people know how to deal with you, and, just be real. So the whole black racism thing, it's really not in our people to hate based on how somebody looks. That's just not in our. We're not made up like that. We don't do that. We just don't. We're the most accepting people on the planet. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But when you really look at it, we're the most accepting people on the planet. This is why, like I said about Africa, that's why Africa's in the state it's in, because they're the most accepting of outsiders, a European, and that's how they got their continent took from them, basically. So, um, like I said, it can be good and bad, but we don't have it in us to hate someone because of how they look. We hate the condition that we're in. Black people hate the condition, and they also hate the hypocrisy and the negligence of the people that are in power that are perpetuating the same system that promotes racism and white supremacy. And that's what pro-blacks hate, And so if people, but that goes over people's head. They still want to call people black racist. I've never seen a black person that hates a white person because they're white or how they look. I've never seen that. And if they're cautious or they're more comfortable with their own, it's not because of how somebody looks. It's because of what has happened to black people throughout history. And those things that happen to black people have never been accounted for. We've never seen white people try to undo the wrongs that were done. So there's not really any reason to feel a equal amount of trust for them that we do our own. But yet people feel that that's expected of us to feel that way. I don't see why. And again, it goes back to shifting responsibility. No one ever talks about the responsibility whites have. I don't care if it's their relatives or descendants that did it and they feel they're innocent. It doesn't matter. If something was done wrong to a people and it was done by your grandfathers, great-grandfathers, or whatever, and you're still saying, I have nothing to do with it, you do have something to do with it if you're not trying to do something to change it. If you're not trying to do something to right the wrong or talk about it or even dealing with it, then that's part of the same guilt. That's part of the same, you're still part of the problem, and you feel no one can criticize you for that. And blacks are afraid to criticize whites for that, but we should expect better. So when blacks like me do expect better, we're called racist. And we can't say, oh, there's nothing they can do. They did something about the Jews. They did something about the Native Americans. As little as it was for them, they still have their little reservations. They have something. Nothing has been shown as far as respect for what we went through as a people. That's just outright respect. If you're not talking about fixing a problem, then you have nothing to say, and you have no reason to call somebody. You have no place. You're in no moral position to call someone a black racist, because black people have every right to decide to deal with black people and not and shy away from whites or feel like they don't have to. If they don't want to trust white people, they have every right not to trust white people. It's none of your business. That has to do with something that happened to us as a people, not how you look. That's all I'm saying. So, yeah, I see I'm getting the comments from the racists already. So this is the type of mindset we're talking about. They just can't show respect. You destroy a whole people and you still feel like you have something to say. And there's just no such thing as a black racist. Plain and simple. So I guess this guy that's putting the comments is trying to get me to respond or whatever. I don't respond to foolishness. You know, why would I? So anyway, that's all I have to say about this. I'm going to get more into some other things that's going on. This whole um, the situation with the father of those twins and all that. And I'm going to talk about the whole swirling issue and a lot of stuff that's going on next. But you know, that's all I want to say right now as far as the racist thing. I get sick of hearing that black racist. What is a black racist? That's just crazy to even hear that out of black people. Even that's just crazy to even hear that to me. You know what I'm saying? And you know good and well why I'm saying the things I'm saying, and you know good and well it's not because of how somebody looks. You know that. All right, so that's all. Till next time.